Hello, everybody in Flow Softball Land. Do I have a treat for you today? I am so excited. You know, I get so excited on these days. I have I have 10-time national champion Kathy Arendsen. But Kathy, I have more than that. 2-time All-American. Well, that's in college. Actually, you're 13-time All-American ASA. You have 3 Broderick Award winner, which is the best softball player in college, a national championship. You're in 2 Hall of Fames, 42 perfect games, 79 no hitters, Sports Illustrated top 50, and you struck out Reggie Jackson 3 times. What?
You know, what it really means is I played on really, really good teams.
Well,
Truly.
and I will say that you're a really, really good pitcher too.
But I was smart enough to know I had to play with great players. I mean, many of my teammates are Hall of Famers. So as much
Yes,
as numbers are gaudy, we did that all together. And I think I'm just grateful. Is not only were they really great people, but they saved my butt so many times.
See, and that's what a great pitcher, talk about their defense. Because to be honest with you, 79 no hitters, like you said, that's a big number.
Yeah.
But it doesn't talk about what the defensive plays were that kept that single from getting through.
Exactly. I mean, you think about people like Allison Ryu and Dot Richardson and Kathy Strahan and the middle infielders I got to play with, they had range unbelievable. So, you know, a lot of times it was me being a fan watching them make huge plays behind me, and then my numbers look better because, well, that hit didn't happen.
That's right. You mentioned a name there that we unfortunately can't interview, Allison. She passed away, gosh, a while back.
31 years ago.
And I was able to meet her one time.
Yeah.
But what a person she was. Would you reflect on her for a second?
Yeah, she was a very dear friend. We had played together for, 10 years anyway. Best defensive middle infielder I ever saw. Quick hands. But even more than that, she was a clutch hitter, not a great hitter, but a clutch hitter. When we really needed a hit, she seemed to come up with it. But she was a leader, and she was one of the younger players on the team. But, you know, talking about somebody who could come to the mound and say something and just calm the situation or talk to the team, she had this calmness, this peacefulness about her. And she left, she was 27 when she passed. She was the reigning all-world second baseman when we had played in New Zealand in the World Championship. And her loss was beyond words for a lot of her teammates, her family, of course, and the world of softball. She was a special talent.
Absolutely. And so you had Allison and you had Dr. Dot Richardson. I mean, you had
and then you had
a middle infield.
Oh my God. And then, I mean, our outfield was as good, and our corners. I mean, I played with like a who's who of that generation in softball.
Did.
So, I mean, Pat Duffy is one of the greatest players of all time. Sheila Cornell Dowdy is a great one. It just goes on and on. I mean, I played with Sue Enquist early in my career, a great defensive outfielder, clutch hitter. You just see so many. You know, even Lisa, the last 3 or 4 years of my career, we played together on the Breakettes. So
yeah, the Breakettes,
it was special.
The Breakettes were the premier team.
Without doubt. And Shuey, if you want to have a fun interview Diane Schumacher.
I do need to find her, don't I?
Her perspective on the world is awesome. She is hilarious. She was just one of the great. She and Pat Duffy were probably the greatest characters of my generation playing softball. They're just goofy and funny and willing to do about anything, and you never knew what was going to come out of their mouth. They're just wonderful, wonderful people.
And Pat Duffy says she's shy.
Oh, Since when?
That's what she
That's
told me
hilarious.
when I asked her to be on the show.
Shy would never be a word I would use with Duff.
I'll have to tell her you said that.
You can.
Tell
You know,
me
Pat
about,
was
go ahead.
go ahead.
I was
Well,
gonna
when I was a rookie with the Breakettes, Pat was actually 2 years younger than I, but she had been with the Breakettes 1 year longer, and we were roommates. And she's just a phenomenal athlete, could play anywhere other than pitcher.
oh,
And I truly, if someone had trained her, she probably could have pitched. But I remember Ralph Raymond coming up saying, I'm going to have Pat catch for you. Duffy's going to be your catcher. And I'm like, oh, good God, because you just never knew. And I remember her sitting back there, she could catch anything. She's just a great athlete. But she'd forget how many fingers she was putting down for a signal. At one point, she was leaning forward to look at her own fingers down to say, if I'm calling a rise ball or drop ball. And I'm just going, oh, good Lord. Just hilarious.
But you knew whatever
But
you threw, she was going to catch.
She did. And, she's an amazing player.
Well,
Should definitely be in the talk about the greatest all-around players.
well, I'm sure she would appreciate that. I agree with you. But I also agree that you're one of the greatest all-around players. So I was trying to describe who you were to some of the younger players that I worked with today. I said, after Bertha Tickey, before Lisa Fernandez. So unfortunately, you did work with in the national teams.
Yeah.
But you didn't make Olympics. We didn't have Olympics.
Right.
So what does it mean to you that the 96 team, because a lot of the players say they played for somebody like you?
I retired after the 92 season, and basically kind of a gentle way for me to retire, I was asked to be on the selection committee. So I actually was a player rep for 96 and 2000 on the selection committee. And it was a very difficult job. And it was especially difficult for me because I had relationships with many of the players trying out, and not to have my own personal feelings and my love for them to interrupt how we picked a team. And I was one of 7 votes, so I could never carry it by myself anyway. But it was really disappointing because we were teased with the idea that softball would be in the Olympics in the 80s, both Barcelona and Los Angeles. It didn't happen. And the way I looked at it finally was it wasn't meant to be. And I didn't think a pitcher in her late 30s could make the team. And then Sheila and Doc proved me wrong, that they weren't pitchers, but they made it and then were spectacular.
Right.
So I didn't have the means to continue to train the way I needed to train and work. I was coaching at Yale. It's a full-time job. And I just didn't have the time to do my job and train the way I needed. So it was time. It was the right time. I'm very proud of all of those women in 96 and 2000 that I got to be a part of, and teammates especially. I mean, I had tears for them. I was so excited. It was wonderful.
They dedicated it to you. They are very conscious about the players that came before them. Hence why I like this show. I want players today to know the players that came before them. I want you to flash back to striking out Reggie Jackson. What pitch did you throw?
We were doing a mix of rise balls under his chin and then drop balls away. Oh. You know, he was at the time playing with the Yankees. It was during the baseball strikes. So he was Mr. October at that time. And quite frankly, it was the first time in my life I'd ever been trash talked. He was talking smack. And I'm kind of looking like, what? He was talking quite a bit. And Doreen Denman, my catcher and my better half on the softball field for most of my career, she was like, oh, really? Okay. So we would buzz him on a rise ball, and he hadn't really seen a rise ball before. And then we'd go away and he kind of whiff at it. He did swing at some rises as well, but he foul tipped a couple, but that was pretty much it. And he had warmed me up. So he saw speed, he saw spin. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I want him to do this.
Right.
But, and he's a big guy. I was definitely taller. I'm going to guess he's about 5'10", but he was broad. And I kept thinking, if he hits this back at me, I could get hurt.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of motivation to hit spots, make the pitches right. we were, it was the Syracuse Olympic Festival. And we were supposed to do this on the field after the gold medal game in front of the crowd. And that was, I knew this was supposed to happen. I'd already done the interview with them. And it was like, that was more nerve-wracking than the game. And the game itself was nerve-wracking. Well, it just started pouring rain in like the third or fourth inning.
No.
And we got rained out. So now it's pushed into the Carrier Dome in Syracuse the next morning early, where it's only the camera crew, the TV stuff, Doreen and I, we were the only ones there, and Reggie, and we filmed it inside. So it went from being a huge spectacle in front of a lot of people, which was
right.
It was going to be a little nerve-wracking, to, all right, we're here, it's more controlled environment. But I didn't have a rubber to throw off from. I mean, it was just basically kind of walking through pitches. So yeah, it worked out good.
What was his trash talk like after you struck him out?
Well, the biggest thing is he refuses to allow that to be shown on TV again.
Seriously? See,
it showed.
This is what
we have a
know
copy.
about.
We have a copy, and I see it. We've protected that and made sure it got changed from tape to DVD to so it's still in pretty good shape. But it showed, and then he exercised I guess a clause in his contract that said they could never show it again. So even when I was inducted in the Michigan Hall of Fame or something, they couldn't show any of that. So isn't that amazing?
But you have
what it is. But that summer we were on 60 Minutes, and that was huge. That one was probably seen by more people. And Harry Reisner was the person who tried to hit off me. And he's an old guy that's just smoking like a chimney. And I remember John Stratton saying to me, Kath, don't hit him. You could kill him. Because he was probably already in his late 60s or so.
Right.
And so I remember he wasn't coming close. He swung like an old wooden gate. It was bad. So I threw a change up, and somehow he got the bat on and just tapped it in front of the plate. And he was so proud that he had touched it. And I was like, oh, Lord. But he was a wonderfully kind guy and did a lot for our sport. That footage and getting on that segment was huge for women, for
still
softball.
Have that? Yeah, do you still have that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my timing being, I was a rookie with the Breakettes in 1978, long time ago. And then in the early 80s, kind of between the baseball strike and softball started getting interest. And so we had a lot of TV appearances, and there were goofy shows I was on, PM Magazine. And it was just kind of the first time people got that chance. People like Joan and Bertha and Carol Spanks and these greats before me, it just wasn't there yet. I am very, very cognizant that I benefited from the generations before me, and others have benefited from my generation. And having been a college coach and seeing and so happy coaches are being paid and players are being treated right. And, when I played in high school, we wore jeans and an old basketball jersey. And that's what our uniform was. The boys had full uniforms, a manicured field. We played on the PE field in jeans. We won a state championship doing that. In college, we had two jerseys, a pair of shorts and a pair of pants. That's all you had. You did your own laundry. We traveled by van. We took turns having to drive a van. It was just such a different world. And to see now that buses and flights and meal money that's fair and beautiful uniforms and apparel, that our women are being treated right, is such a joy for me.
Oh, it is. But they don't know what they came from.
No, but we didn't know how bad the others had it before us either. Right. We didn't, I remember my dad, I walked to school, 5 miles uphill, barefoot in snow or whatever it was. And you kind of go, yeah. I could see our players. At times they would ask something about it. And I'd say, well, when I was in college, we took 2 vans, we did whatever. We slept on the floor and on the seats, and we stopped. We would go like Wendy's for dinner, McDonald's for breakfast, because you didn't have any money.
No money at all. Nothing.
So just a different world.
let's flash back. You mentioned two of the legends that I looked up to. Give me your memory on Bertha Tickey. You mentioned a story that she gave you some advice.
I mean, first of all, she was a figure eight pitcher. And I've never actually seen a pitcher that was figure eight. I've seen slingshotters. Obviously, I saw Joan and Donna Lopiano and Rhonda Wheatley was one, but she was a figure eighter and just a great competitor. And another thing stood out to me, her hair, she had kind of high hair when I met her, and it was perfectly done, and her makeup was perfect. And I mean, I'm looking going, you pitched like that? And she's like, oh, yes. You know, I'm like,
She reminds me of Patsy Cline.
kind of, but she sat down with me as a rookie, and I was 18 at the time, and I was wild. I mean, I only started pitching as a 16-year-old. My high school coach had been a pitcher, and I had thought I was going to be a shortstop. I was a good athlete, and he kind of looked and said, she's not very quick, she's not very fast, her limited range, she'd be a good pitcher. And he kind of challenged me and got me going. And so when I went to try out for the Breakettes, I truly didn't hold any hope of making it that year. I just hoped that they'd see the potential. I'm from Michigan. I mean, I flew out to a practice and tried out, and I'll never forget John Stratton and Ralph Raymond sitting down. Now, when you come back, and I'm like, when I come back, yeah, we'd like you to join the team for this year. And I'm like, it was just it was probably the greatest moment of my life, just making that team. Because as a 12-year-old, I had watched them play. Yep. And I knew that that was going to be my Major League Baseball opportunity, or dream anyway. But Bertha sat with me because I'm wild. I'm walking people. It's driving Ralph crazy, I think. And John's trying to because then I sense his stress and I stress. And I'm not giving up a lot of runs, but I'm just putting people on when I don't need. I'm pitching from behind way too often. And Bertha came over and she sat with me before a game and said, listen, I think the thing I'd like to share with you is nothing else matters other than if the runner makes it from third to home. Don't get caught up in the other stuff. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Well, that makes sense. Even if I get the bases loaded, if they don't score, it's maybe the stress levels of our coaches go a little crazy, but it's not that big a deal. And so, that kind of stuck with me. Obviously, I remember many, many years ago, and I appreciated that. And I love that she took the time to talk to me. She was a breakout pitcher. She had retired long, maybe 10, 15 years before I started there. But she took the time to come and see me and talk with me. So that was very meaningful. We had that happen often with former breakouts who had retired and, had moved on and sit down and talk with us about their experiences and share a few tips.
Yeah, Bertha has that reputation that she shares. She was a very giving, sharing person. I've never met her. I wish I would have, but I'm going to do a show in her memory.
Good. You should. I mean, she's one of the all-time greats without a doubt, and maybe the greatest of her generation. And, talking to people like Carol Space and Shirley Topley and Willie Rose and Joyce Compton, Donna Lopiano, Joan Joyce, all of them can say where Bertha fit in this. Billy Harris, Dot Wilkinson, all of those folks.
So I read somewhere that you really idolized Joan Joyce.
I did. I saw her when I was 12. We watched the Breakettes. They came to Michigan and played the Lansing Laurels, who was a great fast pitch team for many years. And I played in a tournament with them. I was from Holland, Michigan, or Zealand. And we went and I watched these women play and went, oh my God, this is amazing. And that became my dream. And I remember after the game taking my glove and a whole bunch of Breakettes, including Joan, signed it. And it was a motivator for me. She was totally dominant. Her slingshot, I never pitched slingshot. At that time, I'm not a pitcher, but she could hit, she could field, she could pitch. She just had this air about her of just total dominance. For me, gosh, I've gotten to see, I didn't get to see a lot of the Bertha Tickey era to compare, but I've seen after that, it's hard to say that anybody was a better player than Joan Joyce. She played infield, she could hit, she was dominating as a pitcher. it's hard to believe. I think Lisa's up there with her. It just was a different era.
It really was. I know
Technology was a lot different.
right? She said that Stan Musial told her that girls weren't supposed to be able to do that.
Well, I think anytime any of us pitched, I pitched on PM Magazine to the Durham Bulls, the minor league team.
Right.
And Joe Girardi, who used to be the Yankees manager, and he's a manager of somebody right now. He went to Northwestern when I was an assistant coach there. And so he was my catcher because he was playing for them. And he was setting these guys up. And on TV, I pitched to the whole team. And there were a number of guys that went on to the major leagues. And, he knew about rise balls and drops. And these guys were just, what the heck was that? And I was 40 feet away. I'm 6'3". I was probably the first of the really tall players. And so I had that leverage and length that really helped.
Well, they said your fastball equaled the 98 mile per hour baseball.
Well, technology was different. I mean, they were trying to use like a police radar gun to measure the speed of or a stopwatch to try. And so we don't know. Today we have ways to measure. I think I threw hard. I don't know in comparison to who. I mean, I got away with some really bad pitches, I think, because I threw hard.
Yeah.
Thank God. Because every pitcher knows when they let go, oh crap. It's just, is it going where it's supposed to go? And, yeah, and I'm sure if you talked with Doreen Denman or Leanne Jarvis or Karen Sancelli Johns, they go, yeah, she missed a few.
I love Karen. What was your favorite pitch? What did you think your best pitch was?
Rise
ball.
Absolutely. I love the rise ball. It was a strikeout pitch. Barbara Ronaldo, another all-time great. She needs to be mentioned with all of this. We were teammates for 15 years. We were the primary battery. And then Lisa came in and we had Tracy Compton and we had a number of pitchers that came in, Lisa Ishikawa, etc. But we were the primaries together for 15 years and we just really balanced each other. She was predominantly a drop ball pitcher and I was a rise ball pitcher. And I loved striking people out and she loved getting ground balls. The least number of pitches she could throw was a big win. I think she threw a game with like 52 pitches in 7 innings.
Holy.
And she would just go out there. If she could throw a 3-pitch inning, bang, 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 ground balls to these great players, out of here, good enough. I'd be like, how do you do that? And then why do you want them to hit it? I don't want them to even hit it. It was just fun. But I think we balanced each other really, really well.
Yes, you did. You guys were great. Tell me this is a hard question. I don't know how you're going to answer it, but what was your favorite moment in softball?
Winning. That thrill of victory when, we won 2 College World Series championships. When that last pitch, I see pictures yet of TWU with my teammates who had gone through so much with me. All of us had we had a team whose coach went to China with the Connecticut Falcons rather than the College World Series with us. And we won with our batting practice pitchers serving as the coach and some seniors. And we all kind of played a role and we went and we won in 1979. And in 1980, because, AIAW, apparently that doesn't exist anymore. None of those records exist. 1980, I transferred to Cal State Chico and we won again the College World Series there. With the Breakettes, anytime. And my parents and grandparents were so supportive. When we were in the country and we were in a big championship, they were there. And so to celebrate with them was really, really meaningful. But that moment with teammates, that championship moment will always be what I just thrived on, motivated me to train, to continue to go through what we went through.
That was a really good answer.
Well, thanks.
Well, let's talk about winning. I believe that I read somewhere that you won was it the state championship while you had the chickenpox?
Well, I got it that year. I have two younger siblings, and my sister in grade school brought the chickenpox home. And that was in the day you just wanted your kids to get it over with. Well, I'm a senior in high school, and the older you are, the sicker you get. Right. So I was quarantined with chickenpox, and I had chickenpox, believe me, for 2 weeks, and I missed games, and it was killing me. And finally, we got released. It wasn't during the state tournament, but it was during a big part. And in high school, especially then, you didn't have a lot of pitchers. Heck, you didn't even have a lot of players.
Right.
So it was meaningful. One of my high school and college teammates was Kathy Van Wyk, the coach at San Diego State. Yeah. She was my high school catcher. So, she then switched over and pitched me. She was a really good player and kind of picked it up. And then she pitched after I graduated. But we went on in our old basketball jerseys and blue jeans, and we won the 1976 Class B Michigan State Championship. And I remember going into the athletic director, and I had gone in before. I said, we're going to be really good. We need uniforms. Oh, yeah, sure, whatever. So we win the state championship. And I remember going in there to see him and said, I told you. Now look at those pictures. That's what you have to live with, is wearing jeans and old throw-out jerseys. I mean, we didn't have anything. Yeah. They had uniforms the next year. The field was fixed up. And believe it or not, when I was coaching at Mississippi State, the AD and his wife was passing through, and they came and visited with me and just said, gosh, if I could go back, we should have done better. Right. Because it was so, even as a 16, 17-year-old, it was so frustrating that we weren't treated. Right. My brother had made the varsity baseball team as a sophomore, and he's just loaded down with gear and a beautiful field. And I'm looking, going, what the heck? Why is this? Yeah. So, it's come so far. I'm so proud to see the softball field now at Oregon compared to what we had when I coached there to what they have now. Missy's doing a great job, and that field is phenomenal. It's beyond what I ever dreamt of having as a college facility.
And the pictures look immaculate. I haven't visited personally, but yeah, the pictures look immaculate. So I have a segment where I ask a player from today to ask you a question. So Jalen Kerr, she is a pitcher for the Heartland Havoc out of Quad Cities, Illinois. Sure. What is the most important thing softball and pitching taught you on and off the field?
Perseverance, first of all, because you will face adversity. It is a given in life. It's a given in sport. And my playing career taught me how to deal with that. And it taught me that hard work pays off. Right. You have to train. You have to prepare. We didn't have a lot of stuff. We didn't have scouting reports. I mean, I'd sit at a national tournament for ASA and watch other teams and go, oh, she doesn't like it outside, or, oh, she's vulnerable here. But we didn't come in and sit down with a coach and say, okay, this is how we're going to pitch. But we also had pitcher and catcher call the game. Right. They said, coach sent us out there, go get them. And we decided what we were throwing to whomever. I miss that today. I have to admit, that is one of the more frustrating parts, is that catchers aren't given that freedom to work with pitchers and say, because they had the best view of what's going on with the umpires calling. But, I've learned toughness in a way, because you got to have a little Teflon around your heart, because sometimes things are going to hurt. Disappointment. Don't take to heart what people say, or what loved ones, even meaning good, say that could be hurtful. But the perseverance throughout all the stuff. Here we are today in a pandemic that's going on and on. Right. We're all having to show perseverance and patience and just working through and making the best of what we have. I would finally say that this time passes by quickly. I played until I was 32 years old. And that was a long time ago. And I thought I would be playing forever, and it does end. Enjoy it. Just go out there and have fun. If you're not having fun, then figure out what you should be doing to have fun. Right. Yeah. When you get down to it, it's a game. Right. It is really. And we make it way more than that. It was my stage, as a girl that turned 6, I guess I became 6 foot at 12.
Oh,
I was bullied. It was not good. I was different. So that made it really hard. But I was always a really good athlete. And having that stage to be able to fall back on gave me a place to kind of fit in. And, I'm grateful for it. Gratitude is probably the greatest thing I can say about my career.
what do you do for softball these days?
I'm a fan.
Right?
It was the strangest thing. I watched the Athletes Unlimited. I watched a number of their games, and it was really cool to watch.
Right.
And I so admire Kat Osterman and that she tried. I mean, first of all, she did great, but she controlled the one thing that you have to have is the consistency at catcher. And I know Gwen Savecki, she played at Oregon, not for me, but I've watched her career as a fan. I'm a season ticket holder up there. It was so odd to see teams that weren't teams. These were individual players trying to become a team for a weekend and then getting shuffled. It was weird, because when you were a breakout, you're a breakout always.
Always.
I get emails yet from the breakouts because I'm part of the family, and that kind of breaks that. But yet it was entertaining as heck.
Yes,
and it looked like the players were having a lot of fun. So change isn't always bad.
No. Well, I look forward to them coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I hope pro opportunities. We didn't have that. Early in my career, I was drafted by the Connecticut Falcons. I was 18. I was way too young. And then, unfortunately, that league failed. The NPF is hanging in there, and Sherry's done a great job with them, and I hope they'll make it because I'd love to see women with opportunity. I think the WNBA is coming on stronger and stronger. So, but we didn't have that. And in a way, we had ASA majors. That was huge.
It was huge.
And it's not today.
Yeah, it's not today. That was my pro aspirations back when I played, was the ASA.
Absolutely. For me, the breakouts, and I grew up in Michigan with the Lansing Royals or Grand Rapids Whirlpool and some of these really good women's teams, but the breakouts were like the Yankees or oh my God. And when that opportunity came up, it was just, wow. Ralph Raymond was the most influential coach I had, although my high school coach was right up there for sure. But, playing there and learning and playing with all these amazing players, I learned from all of them.
Well, Joan Joyce made a comment that I thought was very impactful. Professional women's sports will exist when women support women.
I think that's very true. And I think we're closer to that. And I think I would hope that former players are supporting it, whether it's Athletes Unlimited, whether it's the NPF, the Olympic team, whatever it might be. Colleges, I mean, I know that Oregon sells out all the time. So we're getting more and more fan support. And because women are supporting, we're getting more men coming in. And I think when you compare us to baseball today, we're more interesting. We're faster paced and it's exciting, and the game doesn't go on and on and on. I think our ESPN ratings show that softball actually is a really great spectator sport, but we do have to continue to get better marketing, better sponsorships, and get us on major network TV.
And my pet peeve, we can't buy uniforms from players of our past. Like Major League Baseball, you can.
No kidding. No.
You can buy a Stan Musial, you can buy a Babe Ruth, but you can't buy a Kathy Arendsen, Lisa Fernandez.
No.
You can't.
Heck, I can't buy a Kathy Arendsen.
Right.
None of us can. Yeah, there's still a thought out there that people don't really care. I remember there was an interim AD at Oregon, and I did his radio show, and obviously the staff set up, and he kind of looked and goes, before I got here, I didn't even know there was a softball team because he was a booster that went in. I'm like, well, that's not good. We have to change that. You need to come out and throw a first pitch. You need to get an idea of what's going on. But here he is as a big booster for athletics, and he doesn't even know we have a team.
Yeah, that's not good.
No. And you're like, come on. These women are amazing. And I'm proud of what Mike White and Missy have done at Oregon and all of the great coaches down here. I'm 20 miles from Tucson, and Mike Candrea is like the godfather of college softball. I mean, God, he's just incredible. And I'd love to see social media kinder is I read some of the softball boards and they're ripping on a Mike Andrea or, Kelly at UCLA or Hutch at Michigan, just phenomenal, iconic coaches. And you're like, come on now, what do you know? What have you done? You sit back and say, they shouldn't have bunted then, or they shouldn't have changed pitchers or whatever. They're in the moment. You're sitting there back afterwards. Just
it's easy to judge.
Kindness.
Yes, I agree.
Just kindness, and say, they deserve the respect to say they're doing whatever they can to help their team win. Every coach I've ever been around was very committed to trying to have the best team, but the best experience for their players.
So before we started the show, you mentioned that you are retiring on Tuesday.
I am. November 3. I hope it's a huge day in many ways, but I turned 62 a couple weeks ago, which is amazing. I don't feel 62 other than I do have 2 new knees and a new shoulder. But other than that, I'm trying for bionic status. I'm excited, and it gives me the freedom. I want to travel. My in-laws.
What are you going to do?
What's that?
You play golf? I mean,
because I had my right shoulder, pitching shoulder, because I pitched and then I pitched batting practice for decades. Had kind of worn it out. So now that I'm a couple years past that, I'm going to start playing with that. I want to try pickleball too.
Oh, you'll love pickleball. You'll love
probably.
Pickleball. Yeah.
But I want to travel. I growing up in a lower middle class family in Michigan, I never dreamt I would travel around the world. The softball gave that to me.
Right.
The Breakettes went to Europe. I've been in Japan 5 times, some of it USA softball, but Breakette stuff. I want to continue doing some of that travel and just experiencing life that way. I hope to go to some of the Arizona games and go up to Oregon and watch some Oregon softball. If I could get tickets not in the outfield for the College World Series, I'd be back in a heartbeat, but that's near impossible. So we'll see.
We'll see. Well, I go to the College World Series every year, so hopefully I will see you there next year.
I used to have tickets behind home plate for 15 years or so when I left. Well, when I left coaching and suddenly I had to figure out my next step, you look and say, what's important to spend money on? And I let them go. And then I've tried to talk to people with USA Softball going, well, how about for an old Hall of Famer? Isn't there some, it doesn't have to be perfect seats. It could be whatever, but just, I don't think I could sit in the outfield looking in the sun and survive. That doesn't sound fun when it's on TV and you can sit and watch. So, but yeah, it was an amazing life. In some regards, it seems like a different life where we're in our office here. I'm kind of putting a softball wall together and looking at stuff going, the Sullivan Award. I think Lisa and I are the only Sullivan Award finalists. I was blessed to win the Broderick Award. It was called then 3 times. And I think Lisa also tied that and then won the big one. I mean, that's awesome. I'm so glad a softball player finally won the big one.
Right.
I was really blessed, to be on championship teams at every level. Gosh, it's just so wonderful. And I'm grateful. And I hope if teammates see this, they understand how grateful I am.
Oh, I hope they do too.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much, Kathy. This was amazing.
My pleasure. Well, thank you. What an honor to be invited. I've seen who you've talked to and I listened to some of the interviews and I was like, dang, cool.
Cool. Well, I'm grateful that you agreed to be on the show and hopefully I will see you in the future and please enjoy retirement.
Oh, I plan to. We'll stay in touch.
Yes, absolutely.